The following story is a translated and adapted conversation, recounting supernatural experiences from around the world. This content is intended for entertainment purposes only. Listen with an open mind and enjoy the thrill of the unknown. The content in this video is purely for entertainment. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are easily frightened, be prepared some stories might just send chills down your spine. If you're ready, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and immerse yourself in the world of the unexplained. El Arbol del Horcado, the Tree of the Hanged. In the heart of Mexico, deep within an abandoned field, there stands a tree. Its branches are twisted. Its bark is scarred, and at night, you can still hear the ropes creak. The hangman's curse. Long ago, this tree stood in the center of a small town. It was no ordinary tree. It was a place of death. The guilty, the innocent, the desperate. Many took their final breath beneath its branches. Their bodies swayed in the wind. Some say their souls never left. A night of horror. One stormy night, the townspeople gathered. The mayor's son accused of murder was to be hanged. The boy begged for mercy, but no one listened. They slipped the noose around his neck. And as the lightning struck, his eyes burned with fury. "You will regret this," he whispered. Then the floor dropped, and his body fell limp. The wind howled, the tree shook, and from that night on, the town was never the same. A place of death, a place of fear. Years passed, the town withered. People vanished, and soon, the town was abandoned. But the tree remained. The haunting lives on. Present day, hikers speak of shadows hanging from the branches. Some hear whispers, pleas for help. Others feel a rope tightening around their neck. Even when nothing is there, and those who dare to touch the tree wake up with bruises around their throat, as if something or someone tried to pull them up. El Espinazo del Diablo, the devil's backbone, high in the mountains of Mexico. There is a road, twisting, treacherous, surrounded by cliffs that fall into endless darkness. They call it the devil's backbone. A road built on death. Long ago, this narrow mountain pass was built to connect towns. But from the start, it was cursed. Workers disappeared. Accidents happened even when the sky was clear. And when the road was finally finished, the deaths only increased. The phantom travelers, truck drivers whisper about figures walking along the road at night. Men dressed in ragged clothes, women with lifeless eyes. Some hitchhikers stand by the roadside. But when drivers stop to help, they vanish into thin air. The shadow and the fog. One night, a traveler was driving through the pass. Fog rolled in, thick as a shroud. The road twisted sharply. He slowed down. And then, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. Tall, black, motionless. The driver slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The shadow passed straight through his car. His body turned cold. His breath stopped. And in his rearview mirror, the shadow stood behind him, staring. A warning to all who pass. Even today, locals avoid traveling this road at night. Some believe the spirits of those who died here never left. Some say the devil himself watches from the cliffs. And some believe, if you hear whispers in the wind as you drive, it means you're not alone, and you may never leave. El Fantasma del Faro, the lighthouse ghost. The lighthouse stood alone, watching. Its light had gone out decades ago, yet, on stormy nights, people still claimed to see it shining. The old fishermen of Veracruz, Mexico, whispered about El Fantasma del Faro. The lighthouse ghost. He was once its keeper. Now, he was its prisoner. And anyone who saw his light never returned. The tragedy of the keeper. Long ago, before electricity, the lighthouse relied on a single man to keep its fire burning. His name was Gaspar Reyes, a devoted keeper who never left his post, not even during the deadliest storms. But one fateful night, he vanished. The storm was merciless, waves crashing like fists against the cliffs. The villagers swore they heard screams from the lighthouse. Then silence, when they searched the next morning. He was gone, no body, no footprints, no sign of a struggle. Only an unlit lantern swaying in the cold wind. From that night forward, the light returned, but no one was inside. The captain's last voyage, Present day, a ship lost at sea. "We're off course," Captain Herrera muttered, gripping the wheel tightly. The radar showed nothing but darkness, yet ahead of them, a light burned through the fog, a lighthouse, a beacon of safety. "We're lucky," the first mate sighed in relief. "That light will lead us in." The crew relaxed, but the captain felt dread. That lighthouse had been abandoned for 50 years. As the ship drifted closer, a figure appeared on the balcony. A man in a weathered uniform, standing eerily still, his eyes dark, hollow, empty. His lips mouthing silent words. Then the light flickered out, and the sea swallowed their screams. "Al Hotel Abandonado," the abandoned hotel. Imagine finding an old hotel, forgotten by time. The windows are broken. The doors are locked, yet from the inside you hear voices, soft whispers, echoing footsteps, and the faint sound of a bell, ringing, as if welcoming new guests. A hotel that never sleeps. Deep in the mountains of Mexico, there is a hotel that no longer exists on maps. Built in the early 1900s, it was once a place of luxury, until one tragic night, when every guest inside vanished, no bodies were found. No signs of escape, only empty rooms, and luggage that was never packed. Since then, no one has dared to stay the night, because those who do, never leave. The Shadow in room 213, a group of travelers once dared to enter. They laughed at the legends, called it just another ghost story. But at midnight, they heard a knock on the door. Then another, and another. The sound grew louder. They opened the door. No one was there. But their bedsheets were wrinkled, as if someone had just gotten up. "The woman who waits," one survivor, Carlos, told his story. Before fleeing the hotel, he saw a woman in the hallway, dressed in black, standing still. Her face hidden behind a veil. She whispered, "The guests are still here." Then the lights flickered. And when they turned back on, she was gone. The hotel that calls you back. Some say the hotel still calls to the lost. That if you hear a bell ringing in the distance, it is inviting you in, but be warned, if you check in, you may never check out. El Jardín de los Espíritus, the Garden of Spirits. Have you ever dreamed of a place that felt too real? A garden, ancient, overgrown, silent. Flowers bloom in the moonlight, but their scent is unnatural. You hear whispers among the trees, soft, calling, welcoming you in. But once you enter, you may never wake up. The dream that feels too real. For centuries, people have spoken of a mysterious garden that only appears in dreams. Those who visit describe it the same way, a stone path leading to a hidden place. Strange white flowers glowing in the dark. A fountain with water blacker than the night sky. And statues, carved faces frozen in agony. Some believe they were once real people, trapped forever. A whisper in the night. A woman named Isabella had the same dream, night after night. Each time, the garden called her closer. One evening, as she was falling asleep, she heard a whisper, "Walk deeper, find the gate." She obeyed. Through the dream, she stepped beyond the fountain, beyond the statues, and then she saw a massive iron gate, covered in vines, rusted shut, and behind it, figures standing in the dark. The trap that never lets go. When Isabella woke up, she felt exhausted. Her skin was cold, her body weak. And that night, she dreamed of the garden again. Only this time, she saw her own reflection in the fountain. Her face was turning to stone. The whispers grew louder. They were calling her name, and she knew. If she returned one more time, she would never wake up again. A warning to all who dream. Even today, people claim to see the garden of spirits in their sleep. Some wake up gasping for air, some wake up feeling drained, and some never wake up at all. So if you ever find yourself walking along a moonlit path in a dream, if you see strange white flowers glowing in the dark, and if you hear whispers calling your name, do not follow them, or you may become just another statue, trapped in the garden forever. El Puente del Diablo, the Devil's Bridge. There is a bridge in Mexico that no one dares to cross after midnight. They say it wasn't built by men. They say it was built by the devil himself. And those who set foot on it at night never make it to the other side. The bargain of blood, Centuries ago, in a small village, a wealthy landowner desperately needed a bridge. Floods had washed away the only safe path across the river. Without a bridge, his fortune, his lands, his trade, his power would be lost. One night, as he stood by the water, cursing his fate, a stranger appeared, dressed in black, eyes burning like embers. "I can build your bridge," the stranger said, "before the sun rises." "What's the price?" the landowner asked, voice shaking. The stranger grinned, "Just one soul. At dawn, someone must walk across the bridge first, and that soul will be mine." Desperate, blinded by greed, the landowner agreed. A bridge built by shadows. That night, thunder rumbled without rain. The villagers hid in their homes as whispers filled the air. By dawn, the bridge stood tall, impossibly strong, eerily perfect. The landowner smiled, until the stranger returned. "The deal is made," he whispered. "Now, send the first soul across." The landowner hesitated. Then he had an idea. He grabbed a rooster and shoved it onto the bridge. The bird fluttered, stepping forward, screech. The ground shook. A deafening howl filled the air. The stranger vanished in smoke. The landowner laughed. He had tricked the devil. Or so he thought, because later that night, his body was found hanging beneath the bridge, his face twisted in eternal terror. A curse that never fades. Present day, hikers tell stories. Drivers refuse to stop. At night, people hear whispers coming from the bridge. And if you stand there alone, you might see a figure in the darkness, waiting, watching, still searching for a soul to claim. El Rio de las Lágrimas, the river of tears. There is a river in Mexico, quiet, still. But if you listen closely at night, you can hear them, the whispers, the sobbing, the cries of children who are no longer alive. The curse of the river. Long ago, a small village thrived by this river. Families lived in peace, children played by the water. But one day, they vanished. No bodies were found, only their voices remained. Locals began hearing whispers at dusk. Soft, fragile, "Mama, Mama." A mother's worst nightmare, the voices of her lost children. The woman in white. One night, a fisherman walked along the riverbank. He heard crying. A woman, dressed in white, knelt by the water. Her long hair covered her face, her shoulders trembled. "Señora, are you all right?" he asked. She turned. Her face was hollow, her eyes empty. The fisherman screamed, but before he could run, cold hands pulled him into the river. The next morning, they found his boat, his fishing gear, but he was gone. Modern encounters. Even today, locals warn travelers to stay away from the river at night. Some say they've seen shadows moving along the water. Some say they've heard footsteps, even when they are alone. And some say, if you stand too close, small hands will reach out and drag you under. La Casa de las Muñecas, the House of Dolls. Imagine walking into an old abandoned house. Dust covers the floors, cobwebs stretch across the ceiling. And then, you see them. Hundreds of dolls, hanging from the walls. Sitting on the shelves, their glass eyes staring, watching. A house built for the dead. Deep in the forests of Mexico, there is a house unlike any other. Locals call it La Casa de las Muñecas, the House of Dolls. No one knows who built it, or why it exists, but legend says, every doll inside belongs to a lost soul, and at night, they come to life. The Whispering Dolls, a group of explorers once dared to enter. They found the house untouched. As if frozen in time, the air was thick, the silence unnerving, until one of them heard it. A whisper, a child's voice, calling his name. He turned, and saw a doll on the floor, its mouth slightly open. The girl in the window, one woman, Isabella, claimed she saw something even worse. One evening, she passed the house and glanced at the window. A small girl stood there, pale, dressed in white. Her hands pressed against the glass. Isabella blinked. And in that instant, the girl was gone. Only a doll remained, sitting in the exact same spot. They are always watching. Some say the dolls are cursed. That if you stare at them too long, they will blink back. That if you hear a whisper in the night, a doll is calling your name. And if you enter the house, you may never leave alone. La Posada Encantada, The Haunted Inn. Part 1, The Whispering Walls. In the heart of Mexico, hidden in the midst of an abandoned road, there stands an inn, old, forgotten, cursed. But at night, it comes alive. The guests who never left, long ago, this inn was once filled with life. Travelers stopped here to rest, merchants shared stories by the fire, and laughter echoed through the halls. Until one night, everything changed. A nobleman checked in, but he never checked out. In the morning, the maid knocked on his door. No answer. She pushed it open and gasped. The room was empty, his bed wasn't touched. His luggage remained, but he was gone. No one ever saw him again. And that was only the first. More guests began to disappear, one by one, until the inn was abandoned, but something stayed behind. The nightmares begin. Years passed. Locals whispered about the inn, they called it cursed. Some said the missing guests never left. Some said they could still be heard, screaming. A modern encounter, present day. A group of explorers enters the abandoned inn. Their cameras roll, their flashlights flicker. Suddenly a chair moves on its own. A whisper echoes from the hallway. Get out, they run, but before they reach the door, it slams shut, and then the lights go out.
If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Mystical Tales, so you won't miss out on more eerie and thrilling tales in the future. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.